in the quiet town of Willow Creek, where maple leaves painted the streets in shades of amber and red, lived Eleanor Hayes. At 75, she was the heartbeat of her sprawling family, a woman whose laughter could chase away storm clouds and whose stories wove the threads of their shared history. To her grandchildren, she was Grandma Ellie, the unbreakable pillar, the keeper of secrets wrapped in warmth. She baked apple pies that tasted like childhood, mended scraped knees with whispers of "you'll be just fine, dear," and never let a single tear fall in front of them. But beneath that flawless facade lay a shadow, a secret buried deeper than the roots of the ancient oak in her backyard. It was a crisp October afternoon when the illusion began to crack. Eleanor's grandson, 12-year-old Tommy, had begged for a road trip, just the two of them. No parents, no sisters, just us and the open road, Grandma, he'd pleaded, his eyes sparkling like the creek after rain. Eleanor couldn't say no. She never could. So, they piled into her old station wagon, a relic from the 70s, with seats worn soft as memory foam. Tommy clutched a bag of cheese puffs, chattering about school, his latest comic book obsession, and the wild conspiracy theories he'd read online. The highway stretched out like a ribbon unspooling from the town, flanked by fields of golden corn whispering in the wind. Eleanor drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gearshift, her silver hair catching the sunlight like threads of silk. She hummed an old folk tune, the kind her mother used to sing while hanging laundry on the line. Tommy, wedged in the passenger seat with his sneakers propped on the dashboard, was mid-rant about superheroes. "You know, Grandma, you're like Wonder Woman," he said suddenly, popping a cheese puff into his mouth. "Stronger than anybody. Remember that time you lifted the whole Christmas tree by yourself when Grandpa's back went out? Epic?" Eleanor chuckled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Oh, Tommy, it wasn't that heavy. Just a little spruce from the yard." "But that's the thing," Tommy exclaimed, oblivious to the way her grip tightened on the wheel. "You're always so perfect, like you never mess up. Dad says you were the same when Mom was little, handling everything after, after what happened with Aunt Lily." The air in the car thickened, like fog rolling in from the river. Eleanor's humming faltered. Aunt Lily. The name hung unspoken between them. A ghost they'd all tiptoed around for decades. Tommy, sensing the shift but too young to pinpoint it, barreled on, his words tumbling out like marbles from a spilled jar. "Yeah, Dad told me last week when we were cleaning the attic. He found that old box of letters, yours from when you were young. Said you had a baby sister who didn't make it. But you never talk about it. He said you just kept going, like a superhero, hid it all away so no one would worry." The car swerved slightly as Eleanor's foot slipped on the pedal. She pulled over to the shoulder, the gravel crunching under the tires like brittle bones. The engine ticked softly as it cooled, and the world outside blurred into a haze of red and gold. Tommy's face fell, his cheese-dusted fingers frozen midair. "Grandma, did I say something wrong?" Eleanor stared at the dashboard, her reflection fractured in the rearview mirror, a woman who'd spent 50 years building walls around her heart. Flashback. It was 1968, a sweltering summer in a tiny clapboard house. Eleanor was 18, newly married, her belly swelling with the promise of new life, but complications came swift and merciless. Lily arrived too early, a fragile wisp of a girl who fought for 3 days before slipping away in the night. The doctors called it nature's way. Eleanor's husband, grief-stricken, buried himself in work. Her parents, oceans away in Ireland, sent condolences on yellowed paper. And Eleanor, she swallowed the shards of her sorrow, pasting on smiles for church picnics and family dinners. "I'm fine," she'd say, over and over, until the words became truth. Or so she convinced herself. She'd hidden the letters, the faded ultrasound photo, the tiny knitted bootie she'd never had the chance to use, buried them in the attic, along with the what-ifs that clouded her dreams. To the world, to her children, her grandchildren, she was unbreakable. The woman who turned tragedy into triumph. Who raised 3 kids on sheer will and warm cocoa on rainy nights? But in truth, she'd been running from Lily's ghost her whole life, afraid that admitting the pain would make her crumble. Now, here was Tommy, her bright-eyed mirror of innocence, holding up that cracked facade like a lantern to the dark. "I didn't mean to upset you," he whispered, his voice small. "Dad said it was a secret because you didn't want us to see you sad." Eleanor turned to him then, her eyes glistening like dew on morning grass. For the first time in decades, the walls trembled. "Oh, my sweet boy," she said, her voice a fragile thread. "It wasn't a secret to hurt anyone. It was armor. After Lily, I was so scared. Scared that if I let the sadness out, it would swallow me whole. And you all needed me strong, your mom, your dad, you. So I hid her away, not because I didn't love her, but because loving her hurt too much." Tommy reached over, his small hand enveloping hers. "But Grandma, hiding it doesn't make it go away. It just makes you carry it alone. Like in those comics, the heroes who keep secrets end up getting hurt worse." She laughed then, a real laugh laced with tears, and pulled him into a hug across the console. The scent of cheese puffs mingled with her lavender perfume, absurd and comforting. "You're wiser than I was at your age, Tommy. Maybe even now." They sat there as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the road. Eleanor reached into the glove compartment, pulling out a small, worn locket she'd carried since that summer. Inside was a tiny curl of dark hair lilies. "This is her," she said softly, placing it in Tommy's palm. "My first girl. She didn't get to stay, but she made me who I am. The strong grandma you see. That's because of her, not in spite of her." As they drove on, the conversation flowed like the river beside. Them stories of Lily's imagined laughs. The lullabies Eleanor sang to her other children in her honor. Tommy listened, wide-eyed, no longer seeing a superhero, but a woman, flawed, fierce, fully human. In the end, Eleanor's greatest strength wasn't in the illusions she built, but in the vulnerability she finally shared. It taught Tommy and all of us that true power lies not in hiding our scars, but in letting them breathe, because even in the twilight of life, it's never too late to rewrite the story.